So why does Israel engage in such terror? How is it that an innocent people subjected to terrible Nazi Holocaust in the Second World War came to implement a similar Holocaust in Palestine? The answer to this question lies in the ideology known as Zionism. This ideology was put forward at the end of the 19th century by the Austrian Jewish journalist Theodor Herzl. Zionism was a nation-state ideology which aimed at the foundation of an independent Jewish state. The reason for this depended on the colonialist and social Darwinist theories which dominated 19th century Europe. According to these theories, the industrialized nations of the West had the right to colonize less developed nations. This was envisioned as a natural result of the concept of the struggle for survival between nations predicted by Darwinism. The Jews who put forward the idea of Zionism approved of this 19th century European error and constructed their own ideologies in the light of it. That is why racism became a part of Zionist ideology. These words by the famous Israeli leader Isaac Shamir about the Palestinian people are an open expression of this racism. It is unacceptable that nations made up of people who have only just come down from the trees should take themselves for world leaders. How can such primitive beings have an opinion of their own? Menahem Begin, who took part in bloody terrorist attacks in the 1940s and later became Prime Minister of Israel, had no compunctions about referring to the Palestinians as two-legged animals. Radical Zionists were only able to reconcile their consciences with this slaughter by denying that the Palestinians were human. It is this racist ideology that is responsible for the oppression that has gone on in Palestinian lands for the last half-century. At the same time, the Zionists employ such concepts from Judaism as the chosen people and the promised land. This, however, is not a sincere religious devotion. On the contrary, Judaism, a divine religion, has become a vehicle for Zionism, a worldly ideology. The problem is not Judaism and the Jews, but rather Zionism and the Zionists. The relationship between Zionism and Judaism has never been a realistic one. Those who put forward the ideology of Zionism were people who had nothing to do with religion. Max Nordau, the second important movement leader after Herzl, was a confirmed atheist. Most devout Jews regarded Zionism as an anti-religious ideology and rejected it. Devout Jews still regard Zionism in those terms today. Someone walking about in devout areas of Jerusalem can see slogans written up to the effect that Judaism and Zionism are diametrically opposed. These devout Jews oppose Zionism. They carry slogans protesting the Zionist Israeli policy. This image is of Jews protesting against Israel's Sabra and Shatila massacres in 1982. The placards they carry reveal the Zionist violence. All of this show that there is a huge gulf between Israeli terror and Judaism. In fact, it is quite impossible for a sincere, devout Jew to oppress other peoples. Although the basis of the religion, the Torah, has become interspersed with human words and corrupted since its revelation, it nevertheless commands peace and justice between people. For these reasons, devout Jews criticize Israeli terror as a violation of the Torah. One of these is Britain's chief rabbi, Professor Jonathan Sacks, who criticized the way that Israeli policy is treated as equivalent to Judaism in a statement he made in 2002. There are things that happen on a daily basis which makes me feel very uncomfortable as a Jew, he said. Even some Israeli soldiers oppose the government's harsh policies. In 2002, some 250 Israeli soldiers refused to serve in the occupied territories, saying, "We do not want to attack innocent people."
Suite à un décret divin, les Juifs ont été envoyés en exil et en dispersion. Comme nous le disons dans nos prières des jours de fête, à cause de nos péchés, nous avons été exilés, chassés de notre terre. Seul le Messie pourra, selon les modalités divines exposées dans les prophètes, mettre fin à l'exil et la dispersion. L'exil implique la loi juive selon laquelle les Juifs doivent être
Zionist movement start. My grandmother tell me before the Zionist movement start, they babysitting each other, the kids. They bar off and watch each other like brothers, like brothers. The idea of Zionism to take away the land from the Palestinians, from the Arabs, is starting the whole fighting. Not Arabs is the problem, not Jews is the problem, not Judaism, not Muslim, only Zionism.
Sir Joel Kaufman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I was brought up a Jew and a Zionist. On a shelf in our kitchen was a tin box of the Jewish National Fund, into which we put coins to help the pioneers building a Jewish presence in Palestine. I first went to Israel in 1961, and I've been there since more times than I can count. I had family in Israel, and I have friends in Israel. One of them fought in the wars of 1956, 1967, and 1973, and was wounded in two of them. The tie clip which I'm wearing is made from a campaign decoration awarded to him, which he presented to me. I've known most of the prime ministers of Israel, starting with the founding prime minister, David Ben-Gurion. Golda Meir was my friend. So was Yigal Allon, the deputy prime minister, who as a general won the Negev for Israel in the 1948 War of Independence. My parents came to Britain as refugees from Poland. Most of their families were subsequently murdered by the Nazis in the Holocaust. My grandmother was ill in bed when the Nazis came to her hometown of Stashov. a German soldier shot her dead in her bed. Madam Deputy Speaker, my grandmother did not die to provide cover for Israeli soldiers murdering Palestinian grandmothers in Gaza. The present Israeli government ruthlessly and cynically exploit the continuing guilt among Gentiles over the slaughter of Jews in the Holocaust as justification for their murder of Palestinians. The implication is that Jewish lives are precious, but the lives of Palestinians do not count. On Sky News a few days ago, the spokeswoman for the Israeli army, Major Leibovich, was asked about the Israeli killing of, at that time, 800 Palestinians. The total is now 1,000. She replied instantly, 500 of them were militants. That was the reply of a Nazi. I suppose that Jews fighting for their lives in the Warsaw Ghetto could have been dismissed as militants. The Israeli Foreign Minister, Tzipi Livni, asserts that her government will have no dealings with Hamas because they're terrorists. Tzipi Livni's father was Eitan Livni, Chief Operations Officer of the terrorist Irgun Tzvai Leumi, who organized the blowing up of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, in which 91 victims were killed, including 4 Jews. Israel was born out of Jewish terrorism. Jewish terrorists hanged 2 British sergeants and booby-trapped their corpses. Irgun, together with the terrorist Stern Gang, massacred 254 Palestinians in 1948 in the village of Deir Yassin. Today, the present Israeli government indicate that they will be willing, in circumstances acceptable to them, to negotiate with the Palestinian President Abbas of Fatah. It's too late for that, Madam Deputy Speaker. They could have negotiated with Fatah's previous leader, Yasser Arafat, who was a friend of mine. Instead, they besieged him in a bunker in Ramallah, where I visited him. It's because of the failings of Fatah since Arafat's death that Hamas won the election, the Palestinian election in 2006. Hamas is a deeply nasty organization, but it was democratically elected, and it is the only game in town. The boycotting of Hamas, including by our own government, has been a culpable error from which dreadful consequences have followed. The great Israeli Foreign Minister Abba Eban, with whom I campaigned for peace on many platforms, said, "You make peace by talking to your enemies." However many Palestinians the Israelis murder in Gaza, they cannot solve this existential problem by military means. Whenever and however the fighting ends, there will still be 1.5 million Palestinians in Gaza and 2.5 million more Palestinians in the West Bank, who are treated like dirt by the Israelis, with hundreds of roadblocks and with the ghastly denizens of the illegal Jewish settlements harassing them as well. The time will come, not so long from now, when they will outnumber the Jewish population in Israel. It's time for our government to make clear to the Israeli government that its conduct and policies are unacceptable, and to impose a total arms ban on Israel. It is time for peace, but real peace, not the solution by conquest, which is the Israelis' real goal, but which is impossible for them to achieve. They're not simply war criminals, they're fools.